It's 'cause I keep counting from zero. That's the problem.
That is the problem. Absolutely. Oh, and so pre-COVID did not occur, of course.
What's the issue?
Now this like I fixed
hmm
that stuff. But
Hmm. I think the problem is that it syncs it, so I imagine Wayne must undo it. I think if you take a copy of the scene and then like make it your own version, and then then it should save it locally.
okay. Well, I may have to try that. Let's see. I want to be. I don't live.
I can check that. That's something I can help with. Um, to show. Yep, we're live.
As a matter of fact, our computer is on settings, everybody.
What's straight? Try speaking again, Todd. I'm listening to you in the stream, and you're coming through really like I hear you clearly.
2, 4, 5, 8, 9. Weird.
Waiting for the lag. Yeah, you're coming through really. Your audio's all bitty and roboty in the stream, which is strange because I hear myself clearly.
Test 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 and 2 sibilance. Doc
Yep,
it
it's
sees us
still
on Twitch.
same issue. Same issue.
Okay. I don't really know we do that.
Can you restart the audio cables or whatever you're using?
Suppose.
It's a nice overall fix all.
Restart audio engine. I don't know if that works.
I'll turn the audio back on. Let's see.
And we'll put 30 to 45 seconds.
It seemed to improve it, but it's still.
I mean,
yeah, it's still bitty.
Let's see. Hit the void reset. Yeah, I just did that.
Are you what are you using? Virtual audio cables, or are you
voice
just using
Voicemeeter Banana? Banana, no.
Do you have your setting? Can you? I know that in the okay. Have you looked at the hertz levels, like the quality of the audio that's passing through?
Like my microphone settings.
In the banana settings, like if you're saying from A to B, I want this audio direction. You can often choose the hertz rate.
44.1.
That's that should be fine actually. Yeah. I mean, your microphone might be higher than that, but it's not that big a deal. I mean, that wouldn't be causing these issues.
Device properties for my microphone. That all looks fine. There are like two settings for the. That's what's funny. I even restarted the thing with the thing in the thing. Yeah, it all looks reasonable. It's set at 2 channels, 16-bit, 48,000
It's
hertz,
improving.
DVD quality.
It's improving. I don't know why, but like the buzz is going away. My camera is screwed up again, though. I don't know how that happened.
Oh, good grief! Yeah, I hit the hi Ando. I love this. This is my favorite thing. Um, because nothing ever works. Ever. I need like months. Fortunately, come February, there's gonna be a situation where I have months to do nothing but watch a small child. And by small child I mean infant.
Yeah, you say nothing but I think that means only but.
Well,
You're gonna have anything to do except for that.
No, that's fair enough. All right, well, I guess we're gonna try this, and away we go.
Hiya, this is Kitten Features, and you're listening to Show X Live with Ken in the student accommodation all the way in Scotland. Wait, that was years ago. You're listening to Show X Live with your favorite Scotsman Ken, currently residing in the US of A, and Wayne, mostly from Colorado.
Hey, wait a second. I'm on the show too, and I don't get any billing at all? Well, I know how to solve this. Soldater, Fremad, March! You're listening to Show X with our favorite Scotsman Ken, our child of the corn Wayne, currently living in Colorado, and Todd, who now has an army of angry Norwegians at his back. Enjoy the show! Potentially. Hello and welcome to Show X. Ken, I think you can talk.
I can. That's excellent.
Fantastic.
I do.
Nope.
I do see that my video is doing the thing again.
You're bounce. So you know what the best part about a army of angry Norwegians is?
No, I've no idea what.
They work for cheap hydroelectric power. Fantastic. Welcome everybody to Show X on Twitch.tv. 2 p.m. in the East and 7 p.m. GMT on a Sunday. This is the often imitated, never duplicated, sometimes eviscerated, and punching you with gigantic kapow emoji things or whatever. Show X. We're live on Twitch.tv and potentially YouTube and other places. So I'm not seeing any Macro Crush error messages. ? So it may also be on Facebook and YouTube as well. So that's exciting. Wherever you're watching us, hello. Joining me today is Dr. Professor, Jedi Master, Rear Admiral, Keeper of the Watchtower, Lore Master, Ken Reed. Welcome, sir, to the show.
Owner of both Invincible and the Ashes of Alar as of this past week. I have been so lucky with World of Warcraft drops recently. It's been incredible. I am so pleased by that.
Now,
hello, thank you, sir.
Ashes of Alar, that is the mount that dropped off of the Fire Phoenix in...
Not quite.
No?
It drops of Kael'thas at the end of the eye. The Phoenix is the first thing that is eventually what you get, but you don't drop. It doesn't drop from the Phoenix itself.
It's not dropped from the Phoenix. You have to be Kael'thas and then get the Phoenix that way. I see. Interesting, because come Wednesday we will be entering into Outland, or at least some people will.
Indeed, I don't know if they increased the drop rate for that or something as an extra sort of hey.
Let's say it. Do you see the classic thing? And man, let me tell you, the media blitz has been unbelievable.
I know. I've been seeing all over Instagram and everything.
TBC Classic. It is. Oh, pardon. It is legit everywhere.
It is. It truly is.
Yeah. So that's kind of weird. But
I've seen people like dropping like new builds of PCs that are themed after Illidan and such. It feels like we've gone back in time somehow.
Well, so you're probably going to disagree with this, Ken, but this is as good as it will get for World of Warcraft, quite frankly. This early TBC, everybody's sort of on the level playing field. Only the people that have absolutely full tier 2.5 plus have an advantage in anything, and it's going to be that way for the first 10 days or so. So this is as good as it
If
will.
that.
This is as good as it will be.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting as it goes forward. Like, do you think they're really going to stick to everything being exactly the same? Do you think they're eventually going to bring in some modern features into the older games, maybe modern graphics or I don't
Great
know,
question.
modern achievements and the
Great
likes?
question. I could do without achievements. But you know, I guess it will depend on what their subscription numbers like. I'm in looking for group chat because I'm a masochist, and and looking for group chat. At least the people that were playing during pre-patch were pretty adamant that classic is way better than retail. So I don't know. I don't know that I don't know that they want LFR. I don't know that they want Chivos. I don't know that they want
Mm,
some of these things.
they might not, but the people who could be swayed into classic that say, "Oh, I would, but I really want to track
Yeah, but
my
they already
progress with
they already
achievements."
have those people's money anyway because they're playing retail. So it's not like
True,
you're gonna get them on a second account. I mean, you would have to be
true.
profoundly problematic. I can't say stupid anymore, right? So
Stupid's
you'd
okay.
have to be profoundly low information. That's the smear. You'd have to be profoundly low information to get a second account
Ignorance is a
just
good
for
one.
classic.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think you need to in any circumstance anyway. And if you did have to, I'm sure some would. I mean, we already have multi-boxers out there. People are already willing to pay multiple subs, and that's still a problem, even though they've banned it. By the way, we're still seeing that everywhere. There's loads of multi. They've now actually got special like add-ons or scripts installed, so that if they notice they're being targeted,
Mm,
they automatically stealth because they're usually druids, right?
right.
So you can't report them.
Clever. Very clever.
Uh,
But I know a lot of people that have more than one account. Or more than one sub. And have two clients running. My PC just simply doesn't have enough horsepower for the next week um, to be able to do that. But there are people that have two subs that are running two clients and bouncing back and forth between the clients. Which
yep.
I mean, I guess if you've got the money, dude, right?
Yeah,
So
I don't get it, man. I barely have the time to play one version of WoW, never
right,
mind two.
right,
Yeah, I
right.
don't think that's doable.
So yeah, I don't. Yeah, multi-boxing. I get. I don't know if you remember this, but I certainly do. I got in a fight with the multi-boxing community because I called them stupid,
I remember this, yeah, many years
and they were
ago.
like, no, you totally don't get it. And then so I went to their forums. And it's like, okay, you're right. I kind of. They explained themselves somebody explained themselves in a very lengthy email and was like, look, okay, I did you guys somewhat dirty. It doesn't make any sense to me, but obviously the larger sort of thing is do what you do. I still think you're dumb though. And the forum was like, well, I mean, we can't expect miracles, but at least he said do what you do, right?
That's pretty fair. It always comes down to
Uh,
that, right? I mean, like if somebody has okay, there's several instances of this kind of these kind of examples that are fascinating with human nature, which is okay, mobile games, right? Whales. For those who don't know, I'm sure everybody does, but if you don't know, a whale is basically a class of people who put all of their income, expendable income, into one or several mobile games. Meaning, that if they make $2,000 a month and they put $1,200 to $1,300 into rent and bills and food and stuff, and they have $700 left over, they'll put $700 into a mobile game, and that's how they enjoy their life. That's how they have fun, and they don't regret it. They are happy. They enjoy it genuinely. That is like their thing, and that's where most of these like mobile companies make most of their money. Right? They make money from whales. Um, and like it's not as if these people are rich. Usually speaking, they're still a minimum wage or above that slightly, and they just put their expendable income into the mobile game. It's not as if they're billionaires dropping tens of thousands, although those people do exist as well. It's usually just the average person. And is that a waste of money? I mean, they're enjoying themselves. I think the money should go towards production, personally, and the progress of society. But instead of virtual, entertainment's one thing, but putting that much money into entertainment per month is quite a high budget for somebody on a low income, in my opinion.
Sure.
But each to their own, right?
Yep.
And then you have the other side of it. So somebody who's rich and they're a businessman or a businesswoman and they make crate loads of money each month, tens of thousands of dollars a month, hundreds of thousands of dollars per month, and they look at a mobile game and they're like, yeah, I could drop 1,000. They don't really care. They can do it on a whim. I can drop 10K. Like then they see it, it's silly and so on, but they can do it. Right. I mean, the truth is, though, most people who are super rich that do that kind of thing, they don't do that kind of thing, right? Most people who are rich because they don't do that kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
They know you don't see billionaires billionaires you might do, but you don't see people who are middle upper to upper class shopping in like the most expensive places every week. Usually speaking, you'll find them at Kroger or Aldi, just like everybody else, because they're well aware of how to use their money efficiently. That's and so I don't know, when you think about bringing it back to multi-boxing, like, is it worthwhile? Is it a waste of money? I mean, it doesn't really matter how much money you have. In the end, it comes down to whether you think it's worth putting that much money for your own personal entertainment, regardless of your income.
Mm-hmm. Yep. No, that's true enough. That's the overarching principle, really. So, but Ionis has it. If you spend all of your expendable income on an OnlyFans, at least you get something tangible or tenable out of it, right?
Do you?
Some e-girls used used bathwater, maybe.
Oh, that's true. That's true. You might get some. Wasn't that in violation of some like medicinal like sending human cells and male?
I don't know. Like just go to Vegas, right?
Yeah, man. I mean,
like, or Amsterdam, or Pattaya, Thailand, or like, there's plenty of places that you can go.
I'm kind of super torn on the sex industry right now. And sorry, this is such a tangent to our show topic, and we'll do it for a little while longer. But we will. If anybody's got that 5,000 point reward, they can stop this now and make us talk about Marvel whenever they want.
Is it really 5,000? Is it really 5,000 points?
Ridiculous. I think it is something high.
No, 2,000. 2,000. It's 2,000. I run the show and I'm at 1.4K, so we don't have too much longer before somebody's got 2,000 channel points. And at the rate that Kuro's probably acquiring them, you've probably only got about 90 seconds to get this bad boy in. So anyway, yes, go on. You're unsure about the sex industry.
I am. So my opinion has always been that I'm sort of for like the empowerment of women, and if they want to go out and strip or get involved in prostitution or whatever, so long as it's done safely and respectfully, I didn't really have a problem with it. But then I've recently seen some stats about Amsterdam and the red light district there, and it showed that I think it was something like 80% of the women there were there due to sex trafficking.
Yep.
And that suddenly makes it a lot less ethical.
That changes the dynamic, doesn't it?
Entirely. Yeah. And it's this exact same thing when you think about your local strip bar. I mean, those women are probably making good money, but it depends. If they are in fact involved in drugs, or they were groomed from a young age, which is also very possible and likely in those kind of situations, then again, it's no longer a clear-cut ethical issue of empowerment, and it instead becomes considering those circumstances, I'm kind of evil for giving them money to do this thing. I'm encouraging it and paying for this industry.
Yes, you are. Yes, you are. I've never had a problem with it. I have a problem with the vocabulary legerdemain that's being played as an extension of it. Like, if you want to take your clothes off for money, that's totally fine, right? I don't have any problems with it. I don't want to judge you. I'll be an enthusiastic participant in it if and when like the situation's appropriate. Right? But I'm sure as hell not going to judge you. What I am going to judge you is if you take your clothes off for money on the internet and call yourself something other than a stripper. That I have a problem with, because that's what you're doing. You're stripping. You're just doing it on the internet. So I'll tell you this much: if anybody official on Twitch thinks that they're not running a stripping operation, get real. I mean, there are girls that are getting paid money to take their clothes off or to not have any clothes on in the first place. Like either way.
You could say the same about certain male and female actors who, are hired because they are attractive, well-built. Thor, for example. I mean, he's also quite a good actor, to be fair, Chris Hemsworth. But he's also a super attractive dude, and he's also very well-built, or at least he was in the earlier films.
Sure.
And that's partly why he was hired, right? Because they wanted a super attractive male lead.
Naturally.
Which is understandable for the film and so on. But then you can also say, well, if you're getting hired for your looks and you're supposed to take off your shirt occasionally, that's a form of stripping almost.
He's never shown up in a hot tub. That's all I'm saying.
I browsed Twitch recently. I've been trying, like I said, I've been trying to do that more, and I noticed these hot tub streams you were talking about last week. That's a thing.
Hot tub meta.
That's genuinely a thing. In fact, the most viewed one that I saw the other day, it was top of views with like 17,000 or something, of just chatting on Twitch, was some girl whose title for her stream was "No Longer Banned."
Yep. Well, because none of these people who get permabanned stay permabanned, right?
Sure, because it brings Twitch money, right?
So if you can feed your cat booze, and then if you accidentally open your legs with the wrong outfit, like they'll drop the hammer on you, but it's only for 2 weeks, right? And then
it's gross, man. I mean, like. Especially the animal abuse stuff that gets right under my skin.
I came up with this is really funny. And since somebody mentioned Amaranth, I came up with one of the possible solutions to this problem is that any sort of just chatting or hot tub stream, you have to put your marital status in the title, or it's like a stream tag. So it's like, I'm a 20-year-old college girl, married, right?
That's funny.
I'm the late 20s, and I moved to LA to chase my dream. Married.
I don't have a problem with it though. I mean, like, I get that it's not Twitch's original purpose of game streaming, but I don't have a problem with it. I mean, my point is,
neither do I. But let's not play fast and loose with the dictionary. Right? That's all. That's all I'm saying.
It's part of the freedom of expression, freedom of speech, and all that. They can go on and say, I'm just turned 18 and I'm I don't know, drunk and high and all this stuff, having a good time.
Married. Buy my house. Flicks. K thanks bye. WTB. One house. Must be in Los Angeles, NYC, or London. PST.
This very much reminds me of RuneScape.
I bet. Anyway, let's talk about the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Yeah, let's do that.
It's gonna be a short conversation because they did this generation, or they did the Empire Strikes Back for this generation. So this is as Infinity War and Endgame are as good as it will ever be. And it's all downhill, right?
I think that that is very presumptuous, and we don't know. I think we have to wait and see what it's like, because WandaVision, which is the very first part of this new what do they call this phase? Yeah. This new phase
4
that was very good, and it was very successful.
It was alright. Yeah. I was fine with it. It was
very successful. The numbers were insane.
Sure. I get that. I understand that it's popular. You know me. Popular and good are not the same. Half of everybody is dumber than average. So the fact that their favorite media outlet said that WandaVision was good is going to lead them to believe that WandaVision was good. What I saw of WandaVision was fine. It didn't. Like, the story didn't move fast enough to keep me. So I haven't finished it. I'm sure I'm missing something. But yeah, I just, I'm sure it's going to be, I'm sure they're going to have more of a plan than it turns out that Disney had for Star Wars. Right? Because we're not really talking about Marvel Studios anymore. We're talking about Disney. And that's the
Yeah,
big
this is true.
problem in this whole thing.
This is true. However, I think the people who are involved in making the practically everything in the past 8 years that's been successful, completely estimating 8 years, um, I think most of them are still working on it. And the amount of money that's been getting sunk into it and the wealth of experience they have to draw upon, the fan base they already have existing, I mean, it's pretty hard for them to screw up at this point. And you know what? I've not seen a single dip in quality. But before we go all down this route of what we think this phase is going to be
I was
like,
gonna say
maybe
we
we
should
should do a
do the
little bit of background
yeah.
first.
So let's talk about the three phases that happened up until this time. And I think what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna list the phase and then list what the point, or say what the point of the phase was, and then list the movies in the phase. Is what I think I'm gonna do. Yeah. So we'll start off. MCU Phase One was an introduction to each of the Avengers. So MCU Phase 1 is Iron Man, The Incredible Hulk, Iron Man 2, Thor, Captain America, and the Avengers. So those six films, by the way, six films in 4 years. So no brand fatigue for the MCU. Um,
Let's just say the Incredible Hulk is technically part of it, but I feel like was that even like intended? Was
yes,
that it
I
wasn't
mean
really?
that's
I think at that stage,
yes, I
really.
believe it was. Yeah. I mean,
Huh.
I'm not sure what happened between Ed Norton and the studio, but I think Ed Norton was going to be Bruce Banner. I think that was the plan, which again I would have been fine with, but I'm also fine with what's his face? No, it's golly, it doesn't matter. The guy who's playing the Hulk now.
I would
Doesn't
not know,
doesn't
but
it
yeah,
doesn't matter who he is.
I like it. I like the
Mark
actor. He's good.
Ruffalo.
Yeah, he's got I don't know. I like his subtle hidden anger face.
Yeah,
He's quite good at portraying what I think of as the
yeah,
Hulk.
he's fine. It's not like I didn't look at him and go, oh, that's totally Bruce Banner. But I can certainly suspend disbelief and go, yep, he's Bruce Banner for the purposes of these films. Bruce Banner is Mark Ruffalo, and vice versa. So
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, I don't really consider the first film part of it just because it felt so separate and so much earlier than everything else, and I just kind of ignored it
But
because it wasn't.
the post credit scene, there was a tie-in, right? Because the
You'll have to remind me because I
Tony,
do not
if
remember.
I remember correctly, Tony Stark comes and talks to the general, um, with the general guy. Yeah. So
All right.
yeah, the father of the girl that Bruce Banner is sweet on in the Incredible Hulk, and Tony Stark comes in the post credit scene to be like, ah, so you got yourself a little problem, do you? And like trying to form the Avengers essentially is where this whole thing is going. And this was in that awkward period where Tony Stark probably was working for Nick Fury, but then ended up not working for Nick Fury because of the interim between Iron Man 1 and Iron Man 2. So,
Right. Okay. All right. So when did you start watching the Avengers films when they first came out, like in the cinema?
oh
Were
yeah.
you like invested from the
No,
start?
we went and, one of the things that we used to do on the Monday nights when we always hung out was to go to movies, right? So we would go have dinner someplace, and then either we would play video games, which is a lot of 2005, 2006. We played World of Warcraft every Monday, and then
Sure.
after that, we would go to see films. And when each of these Marvel films came out, I think we spent a Monday night after opening weekend to go and see them. And I think all of these I saw in the movie theater, like
Wow.
the Monday after opening weekend.
I think
I
that's
don't think we missed any of them.
I think that's more than I saw at the cinema actually,
Hmm.
and I think I'm a bit more of a fan than you are in terms of how much I enjoy the Avengers these days. Anyway,
I,
from what I've heard from you,
I
anyway,
mean,
I may be wrong.
no, so I don't have a problem with the films. I think the films are fine. Like when we get into MCU Phase 3, I think I have some problems with a couple of things that they did. I have a problem with a couple of things that they did because they spoiled an opportunity. I understand why they spoiled an opportunity, but they spoiled an opportunity. Just a license to absolutely print money. And I don't know that Mark Ruffalo could pull it off. Edward Norton could have, or Ed Norton could have. So maybe it's okay that they missed the opportunity. So, but we'll talk about it when we get there.
Yeah. So, which films were involved in Phase 1? It was The Incredible Hulk and
Iron Man 1,
right?
Incredible Hulk, Iron Man 2, Thor, Captain America, and the Avengers.
Right. So I pretty much didn't enjoy. I enjoyed Iron Man, kind of, but I really didn't like Captain America, and I've never been a fan of Captain America. I used to think he was okay until my wife kind of opened my eyes to. Do you realize he's just like propaganda man? And I actually paid attention to it. And I was like, yeah, that's so obvious. Why didn't I see that? That was pretty dumb of me. But
yeah, he's propaganda man, but he's the first. He's the first attempt at taking a regular human being and turning them into a superhero, right? And he was the right person in the right place at the right time with the right mind behind it, and he turned out to be something special. Like, I think that's a compelling story, and even though he is more or less propaganda man, I don't see that as a problem. Like, he starts out as propaganda man because nobody knew what he could do, and nobody could predict that he would be basically the model soldier. Here he was, the model soldier before he became a super soldier, in as much as like he believes in the cause and would follow orders, right? And then once he got the super serum, he also had the physical tools to act on that stuff. Right?
That's fair.
Even though in the film he goes rogue, right? On his first mission, so to speak. Mm-hmm. He ends up going rogue. So,
I should also mention, did you ever read the comics, or is that something ever interested you?
I've read certain bits of the comics. Like, I wanted to know the deep lore behind Civil War before Civil War came out. But outside of that, not really.
Okay, I haven't touched the comics at all, really. I've read some comics in the past, but nothing to do with the Avengers or the likes.
Okay.
I just want to clear that for our audience, because I know some people will have very strong views based on that kind of thing.
Doc Dad asks an interesting question. So what if he was propaganda man? Does that make him a bad hero? So that depends, I think, on what your opinion of what is now in modern parlance called American imperialism, which in my parlance is beating simultaneously the Nazis or not simultaneously, beating both the Nazis and the Soviets in the same century. And in that case, I don't think it's bad that he started out as propaganda man. I think a hero's a hero, regardless of what the result is. Right? The bad guys have heroes too. They just lose. So,
yeah, So his question is, does it make him a bad hero? I feel like that's a loaded question, because it's not whether he's a good or bad hero, it's whether he should have been a hero in the first place. And I don't know. I'm like, I think Captain America should, if he's going to represent America, should represent all the good and bad of America. And he doesn't. He represents only the good in a very filtered viewpoint. And that's kind of what irritates me about him.
Okay.
I think it would be much more interesting if, like, for example, during the Civil War stuff, he just took the side of being a good guy, and that was it. It was not really, there's nothing really particularly.
Did he though?
Well, arguably.
He's outside the law for a huge chunk of Civil War when we get there, right?
Yeah, but again, it's just trying to sell America as being that, right? Like, oh, we're the rogue guys, we're the cowboys. We like to solve the problem regardless of the laws.
Wow, I interpreted that very, very differently. I thought he was he was standing on his principle that as soon as the government puts a collar around their neck, they would never have freedom again. And if they're not free, what the hell are they fighting for?
You're right, but he's still Captain America, regardless of that. He's always going to be representing America in the end.
Okay, sure.
So,
but I mean,
anyway,
he's not say. I mean, they didn't. So one. I mean, and we're going way past MCU Phase 1 to talk about this, but there was never a bit in the Civil War film where they showed the rogues saving people. Right? It was only to my remembering after things started to get really bad, when it was like, okay, things are getting really bad and we need the whole team and not the two halves of ourselves, right?
mm-hmm.
So I don't know. That's really interesting, Ken. It's a take on that particular character in that particular movie that I hadn't really even thought of before. I always looked at him as the conscientious objector, to a government overreach rather than oh, we're rogues and cowboys. That's interesting, very interesting. Anyway.
It's a perspective from outside the America, right? I mean,
sure.
that's kind of what. I mean, to everybody in America, Captain America isn't. He represents us, not them, right?
Sure.
And like, I'm never going to be, even if I become a resident of the U.S. permanently or whatever, I'm never going to be truly a citizen. I'll never be allowed to run for president. I'm never going to be considered a native, right? No matter what, culturally or socially or otherwise. Mm-hmm. Other than when I'm getting mocked by my friends in Scotland. Bloody American. So, you know, that's kind of why I'm saying that. That's how I see it. I just see Captain America as a representation of America in some sorts.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair.
But anyway, yes, I didn't particularly enjoy the Captain America films. It's not just the propaganda stuff, which we can leave to the side for now. It's also the fact that sorry, my work email is going absolutely crazy. I can't hear anything except for work emails. I think Outlook just crashed on me.
Oh, that's fun.
It did. Okay, yeah, it did. Yeah, so I think it's also the fact that I didn't really enjoy Captain America as a hero. Like, yeah, I get that he's a human who's been given kind of superpowers. He's just kind of boring. Like, I don't know, like, at least Iron Man has all this cool stuff going on. Hulk is also kind of boring as well, but I like the Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde kind of approach of, you know, he could flip at any moment, can't control it stuff. So that makes him interesting. Scarlet Witch sorry, not Scarlet Witch. Romanoff,
Black Widow,
Scarlett Johansson. Yeah, she is also kind of boring. And I guess what I'm saying is that the parts that I enjoy with Avengers are the superhero elements. Even the ones where it's through technology, I don't mind that so much. But I felt that Captain America was a bit too human still, and his only weapon was a bloody shield. I mean, come on, man. And the number of times he loses that thing and other people take it, and it's just, I don't know. He's always very conveniently placed against appropriate enemies, you know? Same with Black Widow. Like, it just so happens that she's fighting somebody who is her power level of you know, human or around that.
Sure, but by the end of this thing, that's not true anymore, right? That Natasha Romanoff can hold her own against otherworldly beings, right?
I do like that towards the end, her character and skill growth is no longer, I'm a spy who's sexy. And she instead becomes, oh, I'm actually in charge of a group of high security personnel because of my skill set of teamwork and leadership and diplomacy and infiltration and all that stuff. That was really nice character growth, and I really enjoyed seeing that. However, she starts off as incredibly dull.
That's fair. Secret agents are going to secret agent. So I was not particularly worried about her particular character arc. I don't really have a ton to say about these. They're all pretty good origin stories. You know, we get introduced to Thanos at the end of Avengers, and it is really fun to go back to watch these things, starting with Iron Man, and go through them and then watch the post credit scenes as well. That give you a little window into what's happening alongside or slightly in the future to what's happening in the film. I always thought that was.
Yeah.
I thought those were really clever.
The tie-ins are good.
Yep.
Yeah, I do like that. And what other what other set of films actually makes you want to stay behind after the credits? It's really just Marvel, and I like that.
Yeah, very true.
It does make them feel special.
Yep, very true. So yeah, I was. Go ahead.
Go on.
No,
I was just saying,
wow.
I'm both too polite. Go on, you go.
There's not really. If I had to pick a worst film out of all of these, it's Iron Man 2. I did not particularly care for the revenge storyline. I'm the kid of a disgraced scientist that used to work with Tony Stark type of thing. We got an upgrade in the cast, by the way. So Don Cheadle is playing Colonel Rhodes instead of, I don't know if they're gonna name him in the little blurb. Nope, they didn't. I always get it wrong though. So yeah, the actor that was playing Colonel Rhodes got the boot, and Don Cheadle said no to Iron Man 2, I think, and they got Don Cheadle to take his place, and Don Cheadle is a way better Colonel Rhodes. Anyway, in my opinion.
Fair enough.
So,
No, it's I didn't really think much about the who I'm very bad with actors and stuff, so I don't really remember. The only thing I actually have to say about any actors, I should probably mention, is I really, really, really dislike Gwyneth Paltrow as Pepper Potts.
Really?
Yeah, but not necessarily because of how she does a good job of playing it. It's more of how much of a horrible human being she is, and I really don't think that she should be given a part in a film and given.
She's a horrible. Gwyneth Paltrow is a horrible human being. Oh, okay.
Yes, yeah. She sells goop that literally just like vagina scented candles and such.
No, I'm aware. I'm aware.
Yeah, and claims that it heals people and sells it for a price that's high enough that if you're really poor and you genuinely think that it could help, you would go for it because you can't afford healthcare, but low enough that it's cheaper than actual medicine on insurance policies in the US if you don't have insurance. So it's an incredibly evil thing that she does, and I really, I mean the vagina scented candles is more just kind of amusing, I guess. I don't care about
that. I'm sorry, Ken. I had the sound effect going off in my ears. I have no idea what it was. Big shout out to Lantis for her tier 1 sub. Thank you. And
thank you, Lantis.
Welcome. And I could not for the life of me figure out what that was because I'm bouncing around windows in order to talk. And yeah, enjoy your sub badge swag, Lantis and Kuro. So anyway, I got so okie doked by that. That was pretty funny. I was like, oh my god, what's going on?
Very much appreciated, Lantis. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We love you guys' support.
Show.
So yeah, I just don't really enjoy seeing her on screen because every time I see her, I'm like, oh, that's an evil person. Why are you paying her money willingly? Like, what are you doing? Why are you endorsing this? Again, nothing against her acting skills. I think she's a great actor.
Sure.
I just really don't like her as a human being. Okay. I think she's evil.
That's fair enough. Wow. All right then. I don't really have anything much more to say about these. Like, they're good.
Yeah.
We see the Red Skull. We see, Thanos gets introduced. That's really the big takeaway of Phase 1 is that we get introduced to the big bad. Ryan Johnson, you should probably take notes, because eventually you do have to introduce the big bad. And it's Thanos, although I don't think Thanos is referred to by name He's just in command of the Tanar'ri. No, it's not the. I want to call him Tanar'ri, but that's the name of one of the sects of demons from Dungeons and Dragons, the Jatari. The
Yes, that's
Jatari.
right. That rings a bell.
Yep.
Yep.
It's and there's the plot of Loki trying to take over. That's the Avengers, where Loki's trying to take over the world, on Thanos' behalf, so that he can mess with Thor's favorite people, because Thor likes the people of Midgard.
Yeah, that's another thing. Speaking of Thor and his original film, I really like Loki. Loki, I think he's really fun, and I like Thor as a character. And I think in Thor, after the first film, I really like him. Thor 1, oh my God, the romance subplots, it is so forced in. I don't give a single hoot about Thor and his Midgard girlfriend. I just don't care. She added nothing to the story. Her acting was fine, etc. And she I don't have a problem against the actress. I'm just saying that there was no need for it. Why couldn't they just have Thor on the planet without having to have this weird forced in romance into I've always had a problem with this, as if they put forward the script for a film, like, oh, here's this cool script about Thor doing all this cool stuff. Yeah, that's great. Right, but if we want to sell it, we really need to have some kind of romance to bring in a certain demographic of people.
So, Devil's Advocate. Devil's Advocate.
Okay.
He's a demigod, right? Why would he care about a planet full of mortals? Right? Why?
I think a lot of religious people around the world would like to talk to you about that.
No, but seriously, I mean, he's not actually God. He's a demigod. He's an extraplanetary being, right? So why would an extraplanetary being care about a planet full of mortal beings? And I guess they're mortal beings too. They just don't age very well. So why would he care? Why would he care about Earth? And if he's got an Earth girlfriend, and if he's got an Earth girlfriend, he's invested in Earth not getting destroyed.
I get that. I just think there's a lot more merits that he could enjoy about humanity that he could have learned throughout the film. Instead of, like, he could have started off as more of a brash character who didn't care, but instead he seemed to already be kind of caring. I think it would be much more interesting if he had that more of a Loki kind of viewpoint and grew to loving the Earthlings, especially when he lost his powers and he came to rely on them. I think that would have been a great storytelling element. And they didn't do that. Instead, they had all this stupid, unnecessary, fudged in romance that was just, it was too in your face. And I think it showed very little respect for the audience and their ability to, consider anything with any kind of depth, like the reasons for liking humanity. That's a great topic to be explored.
Well, we're gonna have a really interesting discussion when we get to Thor Ragnarok, and not for the reasons that I thought we were, because I actually wanted some more of Natalie Portman in Thor Ragnarok, and we basically didn't get any. So, we'll come to that when we get there. Do you have anything else you want to talk about for Phase 1?
For Phase 1? No, I'm happy to move into Phase 2.
All right, Phase 2. MCU Phase 2. The point of Phase 2 is to handle the fallout from the Avengers. So, Loki, with the help of Thanos, opens a portal to deep space. The Chitauri invade. With the idea that Thanos is going to do what Thanos does, which we don't know what his motivations are at this point. Iron Man takes a nuke and directs it at the Chitauri base and kills them all. And there was an alien invasion on Earth, and it just so happens that Earth's greatest heroes banded together in a group for the first time and stopped them. So that's where we're at. As we roll into the MCU Phase 2 movies, which were Iron Man 3, Thor: The Dark World, Captain America: The Winter Soldier, Guardians of the Galaxy, Avengers: Age of Ultron, and Ant-Man.
So my favorite thing about from this phase that I just want to mention is how much I utterly enjoyed Tony Stark's PTSD. I know it's kind of a weird thing to say that you enjoyed somebody's PTSD, but I thought that was I thought that arc really helped develop him as a character from just some asshole dude who has too much money, some just playboy millionaire, to a real human being. And I really and that's when I really started to care about Iron Man. I
I
think we
was a
all
big
did.
fan of it in as much as they were consistent in the writing of how Tony was dealing with his PTSD, right? So to do sort of the whole arc, right? He almost dies when he directs the nuke through the portal because he's in deep space and he didn't plan
Hmm.
for that with the suit. So he falls back to Earth, but survives, and then it's his life is about protecting Earth from the unknown unknowns in the universe, right? And then
Hmm.
ultimately, when they fail, he just washes his hands of the whole thing. He's just like, nope, I'm done. I'm not gonna be I'm not gonna be this anymore because I failed. And then he
Which is a
just,
totally human
yeah,
response. That's
absolutely.
so
No,
human.
that's perfectly consistent. Like, I'm gonna dump everything that I have into protecting my home, essentially, and the people who live on it. And then when I fail, it's just like, all right, that's it. Nothing to protect anybody from anymore. So I'm just gonna go live in the woods on a lake, have kids.
Yep.
Yeah, no, I love the consistency of the writing of that because it totally makes sense.
Yeah, and it's right down Tony Stark's because his worldview was I am the man, and then that was a shock of no, you ain't.
Yeah. Yep.
You know, and that what else is going to shake a man in that sort of stature out of the confidence that he's built up than a complete failure
Mm-hmm.
like that. Um,
Yep.
so yeah, I thought it was amazing. I also loved Loki. I think Loki was such an amazing character throughout, and I think everybody kind of enjoyed Loki. Just the trickster really played into the lore as well of what Loki is in the the actual lore of the
Yeah,
world.
and Tom Hiddleston
Um,
does a good job
he does.
with the character. So yeah, I'm fine with I was fine with Loki's character. Yeah, I was fine. Yeah, I'm fine with Loki's character. I think Tony Stark's storyline arc is better
Yeah, for sure.
marginally.
It makes a bit more sense than Loki. Loki, because we often are, he's kind of an unreliable narrator of sorts. We're not always shown the reasons for doing certain
Right.
things because the whole trickster thing, we can't know what he's up to
Yep.
all the time, or
Yep.
it wouldn't be
And
trickstering.
it's so funny because I'm looking at this and I'm now focused on Guardians, right? And there's
Hmm.
some really important storyline stuff that happens in Guardians of the Galaxy that you
Hmm.
get in hindsight. That if you
Yep.
if you hadn't watched all the movies up until Guardians, like right before you went
Hmm.
and saw Guardians,
You
like
wouldn't
you might
realize.
not know how important the stuff that's going on in that film is because the whole film is like, here's the comic relief. This is a comic relief
Yeah.
film.
Yep.
And
And Loki's staff, for example, that's something that you just don't really think much about. You're just like, oh, he's got a cool
yep,
staff, and then you eventually you learn that it's an Infinity Stone at
yes,
the end of it. It's like,
yes,
oh, that's important.
yeah. Same thing with Thor: The Dark World, right? We There's this stuff that Natalie Portman ends up getting infected with, and they end up having to like purge it out of her, and they hide it someplace. And you don't know exactly what it is, right? As in the over the course of the movie, but eventually it's like, oh, that
Yeah.
it too is an Infinity Stone.
I gotta say I enjoyed her role more in that film because it felt like she had a purpose other than just romantic interest.
She was
At the same time,
she wasn't
she was
just a
kind of
love
boring.
interest; she was the MacGuffin.
Yeah, she was, but it was still kind of boring. Like her role was just like I carried the thing. That was pretty much it. I don't think she actually added anything to the storyline and was constantly being saved rather than really doing much herself.
True.
Even her sciencey stuff wasn't the most useful.
Well,
Her assistant
I
was,
was gonna say,
wasn't.
how do you make a theoretical astrophysicist day-to-day work life exciting in the context of a superhero movie. I'm not entirely sure how you make that happen, but
They did an okay job of that. I mean, like I said, I think the assistant that she had, I can't remember her name, but she shows up in WandaVision later on, and she did quite a good job. The same actress as well, and she's quite interesting.
okay.
And that I think that's how you make people who have advanced PhDs in natural sciences be useful. I think they did what they could, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, in the end, like people like to think of scientists as wearing lab coats and playing with chemicals and explosions, but that really is just sitting in front of a computer all day for most scientists.
Right.
Like most scientists do that.
Right.
So it's really not the most interesting thing to watch.
Yep.
So they did a good job of enhancing that.
Mm-hmm. Yep, for sure.
But yeah, so I enjoyed that. I think this phase was much more enjoyable than the first one for me. I thought it was advancing the plot, lots more interesting characters. You start to care more because the film Avengers, really kicked it off. I think that's where it really started getting good.
That's really interesting. I gotta go back and look at these. Iron Man 1, The Incredible Hulk, Iron Man 2, Thor, Captain America, and the Avengers against Iron Man 3, The Dark World, The Winter Soldier, Guardians, Age of Ultron, and Ant-Man. That's a really tough call because my gut says that the Phase 2 movies are weaker as an ensemble than the Phase 1 films. Like, I could have done without Age of Ultron. Like, I understand why it's there. I understand.
Oh, are you kidding?
Yeah.
I really enjoyed Age of Ultron. I thought that was a really, really fun concept, and it brought in Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver, whatever his name is.
Sure.
And I quite enjoyed them. I mean, admittedly, Going Fast Guy isn't exactly the most novel superhero power of all time, but it's not supposed to be novel. It's just part of the comic universe.
Sure, and he's also the tie-in to the X-Men films, right? Which are not necessarily MCU films, right? They're not getting mentioned at all in this Phase 1, Phase 2, Phase 3 stuff. But Super Fast Guy is a character that shows up in both. So I'm really struggling with this because I shouldn't say I could do without Age of Ultron. I don't like Vision's origin story, I guess.
Okay. It is a bit kind of piecemeal. It doesn't quite fit together.
And don't get me wrong, I love Paul Bettany as an actor. He
does a good job
he's I want him to become that sort of next generation of character actors, right? Like we've got Jeremy Irons, and we had Alan Rickman, and we had there's a bunch of character actors that we all really love. And I'm hoping that Paul Bettany becomes that for the new generation. Where we all look back and it's like, I remember when he was Vision, and now he's in all this important stuff.
That would be cool. Yeah, I really enjoy him. And in WandaVision, he was excellent as well. As you say, he was very good at pulling off a multitude of archetypes throughout that one series.
Yep. So, I don't know. Like, I loved Guardians. Guardians is probably my favorite out of the Phase 2 movies.
Ken Feature's favorite.
Like that's just hilarious. I'm always laughing. I love the soundtrack. I think that probably
so good,
made that movie for me, especially because as I'm sure everybody in the chat knows, like my first job in high school was at the AM/FM radio station in my hometown. So I played most of the things that are on this soundtrack for the first Guardians of the Galaxy. It was just like, yep, played that. Yep, played that. Yep, played that.
Yeah, it was excellent. And in fact, I'm sad to say that maybe it's because of my age or just general. I think that's not entirely fair because I think I also chose to ignore a lot of music before I was born. But I hadn't really listened to much of that stuff. And then when I heard it, I was like, this is a good song. And people were like, yeah, do you not know it?
Yeah. Yep. So, I really, really love the that initial scene where he's dancing through the
Yeah,
um
that's great.
yeah, yep,
Yeah, the whole film is really well put together. I think the characters are super interesting. The I don't know what you called them because they're not Avengers at that point. The Guardians team, I
yeah,
guess, the Guardians. They are excellent. Like as a posse, as a group,
yep,
they have such interesting dynamics.
yep.
They're all fascinating characters. And it means that each person has their own favorite as well, which I quite
Hmm.
like. You know?
Yep, and shout out to Dave Batista of
Oh, he did a
WWE
great
fame,
job.
who did a great job as Drax.
He was
He
my favorite.
is criminally undervalued
Underrated.
as
Yeah,
WWE stars that have become actors.
yeah.
Right? It's criminally undervalued.
Actually, just the other day, Ken Features mentioned a film that is coming out soon that has Batista in it, and she was like, "Oh, we should give it a watch because he's in it." And I was like, "Oh, I never really considered people wanting to watch films because he's in them before."
He,
You know?
he did a great job as one of the subordinate bad guys in Spectre.
Oh, okay,
Yeah,
I didn't know
yeah,
that.
yeah. He makes an awesome entrance in that film, by the by. Perfect, perfect entrance. I mean, but this is really all. If we go back and look at this stuff, this is all sort of Tony Stark overreacting to what he saw in Avengers. Like the idea,
Is it?
like the idea that
Can you
there's
really
this.
overreact to that?
I mean, kind of, right? I create an omnipotent super being robot.
It really wasn't exactly what he expected to be. I mean, like he expected to have an AI and to be, but he still expected to be basically a Jarvis, right? Like something that he can just talk to. He didn't really expect it to be what it turned out to be.
Well, right,
I mean,
and
having
and
the Infinity
it,
Stone really screwed
it
things up.
did exactly what I guess those of us that are somewhat pessimistic about full artificial intelligence are it was the predictable result of that, right? And the
Yes,
predictable result of that is that it got out of control, right?
for sure.
And surprising no one, it got out of control and it figured out that the best way to save humanity is to end humanity,
Yep,
right?
it's just a very poor parameters set for that AI at the very start.
It's and again, he's just like, I'm trying to put a shield around the world. Well, yeah, but right? I mean, the whole point of being the good guys is you want to put a shield around the world. That's all well and good, but we all have to still be able to live our lives, right?
Yeah,
And I think,
yeah.
and so to tie this in, like this came out years before, but for example, Norway is starting to open up after basically being on various states of super lockdown for over a year, right? And it's been a really really nice weather weekend here, also for the first time in like a month, and every piece of green space is occupied by people, and
Okay,
there's
how's vaccinations
there's
going there?
no social distancing going on, not really. And
Uh,
the mistress of giggles sort of said it to me. It's like, we're gonna have to go back into super lockdown again towards the middle of the summer because
yep.
nobody's wearing masks like out in the park. Everybody's still wearing masks to go into the grocery store or the coffee shop or whatever, but nobody's wearing masks in the park. And you've got all these groups of people that are intermingling with each other, and there's no
Hmm.
way that there's 6 feet or 2 meters worth of distance between the groups. Not really. Not really. So yeah, I don't. Yeah. So this whole set of films is uh this whole set of films is really Tony Stark sort of acting or overreacting to what he saw at the end of it, at the end of the or at the in the climax of the Avengers, and I mean it was great,
I mean,
but
can you? Okay, let's just imagine for some crazy second, excluding all the superhero elements, that aliens invaded the world and we somehow managed to fend them off. Can you imagine any world where we don't go immediately into World War? I mean, that's just what would happen, right? Like, I don't see how every religious person in the world would start talking about the end, about how every nation would start claiming that they are the ones who should represent Earth, uh, about how the space race to actually expand because we've now realized that faster than light technology exists or something, right? Like I think if anything, the response that Tony has is the only rational one in the entire universe.
Okay, that's an interesting take. I I have a somewhat different, I guess, idea than you do. It's one of the two things on Earth that could unify everybody on Earth, right?
I agree.
The other one is in fact climate change, and climate change has thus far been unsuccessful, right?
It's too slow. It's too slow. People don't recognize it as a real threat because, one meter every year increase of in Mexico City isn't going to be something that people in America particularly care about. It's just too far away. It's unknown. It's too slow. If it was, Florida has gone underwater, we would probably start caring.
Oh yeah, for sure, for sure. One of my favorite economist people, there's the aquifer that feeds Miami, Florida, is 750 meters, 750 yards away from a Superfund site, right?
Okay.
And if you so there's like toxic waste in this site. Ah! I think we got hosted by Kuro.
Hey,
That's
thank you,
what I think
Kuro.
happens. Thank you, Kuro, for the host with your viewer.
My favorite part of this is the fact that you seem to like absolutely crap yourself every time you get an alert.
Oh,
So if everybody wants to do that to cause Todd to
totally derail his spot. Yeah.
derail his throat and have some kind of arrhythmia, you can you can host us by typing in. I'll do it in chat. So you need to go to your own page and then click on chat, and then you type this in minus the quotes. You type in slash host VTW Show
Yes.
X, and then you host us for
That'll
the just for this show, not permanently,
Yep,
just for this
and
show.
that'll be fun. Also, welcome to our Banks 12, who followed us in the last week. So welcome to you. Anyway,
Thank you.
oh, so yeah, so apparently there's toxic waste within 750 yards of the aquifer that feeds Miami. So as water levels or ocean water levels rise, there's the possibility that there's like backwash into that of the aquifer into that toxic waste site. And
That's pretty scary.
when
Yep.
people in Miami start to glow, or the rate of debilitating disease, um, debilitating disease suddenly skyrockets in South Florida, then suddenly everybody will care,
Yep.
right?
Yep. Exactly. And then we have the overreaction to other events sometimes, in the opposite side.
Sure.
Like if you think about the nuclear reactor issues that we've had in the past, where there's a couple of minor accidents where, if you look at the actual numbers, is the more people die from car accidents every year, for example. And where you don't see people running in terror from the concept of having cars.
No,
In fact, people barely even look both ways when they cross the
it's
street. People
true.
just assume it's always fine,
That's true.
which is madness.
That's true.
But it's because of the scary idea of being in an explosion that really like the nuclear effect and the nuclear bombs, and I think from the wars in the past as well, the nukes dropped on Japan in particular, has really colored our perception of nuclear reactors, even though it's probably right now the biggest thing that we can do to solve the climate crisis, strangely enough. Anyway, that's a whole different discussion.
It's certainly one of them. To be sure. To be sure. So, well, and another one is we have all of this territory that has 300 plus days of sun per year, like thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands. Well, okay, thousands and thousands of square miles of
Yep.
territory that is being used, particularly for anything. And you certainly could dump solar panels on all of that stuff.
So I can counter that slightly. I do believe solar and hydro are absolutely the future. And while they do work right now, the problem that's often underreported is the amount of plastic waste. Because the problem is, if you make a solar panel, they only really are of an efficiency level that's worthwhile having for about 3 years.
Mhm.
So if you have, I mean these industrial ones, right, the big ones.
Mhm.
So if you have this massive array of solar panels, and then you're after 3 years you need to replace them. You need to get a bunch of new plastic, not recycled stuff, new plastic. So that increases a huge amount of carbon again. And the old plastic from the old arrays, they're not recycled. They're just dumped. They're buried. So while it's clean energy that we're using, it doesn't actually help in the long run. We're actually producing more carbon that way.
Huh.
It's actually a really bad system at the moment because right now it's inefficient. If we got one of those like fantastical theoretical solutions like the roads that had solar panels built into them, that's a great idea in theory. We couldn't get that working, I believe, the first attempt that we had. But if we had something like that, that would be amazing. I love that concept. But for now, the only thing we can really do realistically is cut down on coal and increase nuclear. But people are too afraid. And we need to have this education. We need to have a huge revamp in the education system and a public awareness campaign that's footed by the government, letting people know that nuclear is actually the way forward.
Sure. It's
But
the three big nuclear accidents, two of which were caused by human error, and
yep,
one of which was caused by a natural disaster.
yes, exactly. And you know what? Nowadays, with our AI capabilities and the safeties we can put in place through computing systems and such,
Mhm.
we wouldn't have those errors anymore.
Yep.
We really wouldn't.
Yep.
So,
By the way, if
yeah.
you have HBO, well, I guess HBO Max, and for me, HBO Nordic, Chernobyl, quite good.
Great show.
Yep,
Yeah,
quite good,
very good.
quite good.
Oh, one more thing I should say on the topic because I haven't checked the chat, but I wouldn't be surprised if somebody. Nope, nobody yet. I usually the biggest thing I hear people say, well, oh, but nuclear waste. What about nuclear waste? That's a very good point. Nuclear waste is a terrifying prospect and is very, very bad for humans if it gets near us and the environment. However, the good thing with nuclear waste is it's such a tiny amount that's produced that even if America was entirely run on nuclear and we removed all coal and everything else, all the natural gases and such, and instead just had nuclear, the amount of waste that would be produced would be something like 10,000 times less harmful to the environment over 100 years
Hmm.
than coal and oil and gas are. So
I would not be surprised by.
nobody's trying to say that this is the best
Sure,
solution
sure.
forever. We're not trying to say nuclear is the solution
Yep.
forevermore, but for the next 100 years, it's going to keep us going
Sure.
and prevent the current oncoming in a couple decades
Uh huh.
crisis. So,
Yep.
it's an intermediate solution, but in our lifetime, it is our lifetime solution.
True.
And
True.
tell your friends, tell your congressman.
Friends. Okay, it is time for the break because we're a little late. So, we're gonna take about 3 minutes, and we're gonna drop a song in right here. When we come back, we'll talk Marvel Phase 3, and then take a look at the future for Marvel Phase 4, which covers 2021 through 2023/4 question mark. And we'll talk about all the stuff that's happening in there. And the honest Phase 3 is really for me where the Marvel films really come into their own, because there are quite good films, including the Empire Strikes Back for our generation. So stick around. We'll be right back. And you're watching Show X on Twitch.tv. Good luck to me making sure that this works. Here we go!
Kaiser, unseren guten Kaiser Franz, hoch als Herrscher, hoch als Weiser, steht in des Ruhmes Glanz. Liebe windet Lorbeer Kaiser, ihm zu ewig grünem Glanz. Gott erhalte Franz den Kaiser, unseren guten Kaiser Franz. Gott erhalte Franz den Kaiser, unseren guten Kaiser Franz. Über blühende Gefilde reicht sein Zepter weit und breit. Säulen seines Throns sind milde, Widersinn und Redlichkeit. Und von seinen Wappenschilde strahlet die Gerechtigkeit. Gott erhalte Franz den Kaiser, unseren guten Kaiser Franz. Gott erhalte Franz den Kaiser, unseren guten Kaiser Franz. Sich mit Tugenden zu schmücken, achtet der Sorgen wert, nicht Völker zu erdrücken, flammt in seiner Hand das Schwert, sie zu segnen, zu beglücken, ist der Preis, den ihr begehrt. Gott erhalte Franz den Kaiser, unseren guten Kaiser Franz. Gott erhalte Franz den Kaiser, unseren guten Kaiser Franz. Er zerbrach der Knechtschaft Bande, hob zur Freiheit uns empor. Früher lebt der deutscher Lande, deutscher Völker höchsten Flor. Und vernehmen noch am Rande Städtergruß der Enkelchor. Gott erhalte Franz den Kaiser,
Wayne wants to join us.
guten Kaiser Franz. Gott erhalte Franz den Kaiser, unseren guten Kaiser Franz.
Go back. Show X.
Can you
TV.
hear me, Todd? You hear me, Todd?
Can.
Okay. Wayne wants to join us. He does. So he called us on Skype in the group call that we were using before.
Okay.
And so would it be easy enough for you on your end? I think we just need to transition to the 3-scene setup and then go into his call. and that should be okay.
Sure. Yes.
He can always join.
I have no idea how the sound or anything's going to work.
That'll be fun to find out. It should be the same. I mean, Skype is your only source in, so it should be
Well,
okay.
yeah, but I don't have a source for Wayne.
You don't need a source. Skype is Skype, right? So me and him coming through
so
the same channel.
you're a separate audio source in Streamlabs OBS, and I've got my
Yes.
main mic. So yes, we absolutely can do it. Let's do it.
Okay.
Go away. I don't know. Yes? Okay. What are you
Okay.
doing at home?
I drove vigorously through rain and open fields and decided to see if I could make it here, especially when I was listening to broken internet levels of discussion on MCU. and so
I really have no idea now.
So long
all
as
you
that-
have to do is make my video fit, and it should be good.
yeah, the audio should
Although-
work fine.
Although, admittedly, the in graphics going to be from the last time we used this, so that's why it says episode 491 there, because
I can change that too.
Yeah, not a big
Maybe.
deal. But hopefully everyone can hear me. Hello,
Yeah,
everybody.
you're coming through crystal clear for me in a way. That sounds good.
I
And,
just
yeah,
just got back from Nebraska.
How was the travels? How
hours on the
you're
road.
Safe.
I'm safe now. I will say that, unfortunately, to go out there, my Escape that I would normally drive, because it's the big SUV kind of thing or a crossover, the back tire on it, I had taken a nail during the week and took it in to get replaced, repaired, but it went through the sidewall, so it couldn't get patched, so they had to replace it. And they were trying to get it back to me in time for me to head out on Friday to make it to my cousin's wedding. And they called me as I was 2 hours on the road already in my 93 Miata. And while the Miata is a fun little car, a distance car, it is not. But I made it safely, and then upon arriving, I did note some little intricacies where something was rattling, some were new. Part of the top had ripped open a little further, and I did fear for a short period that at highway speeds, the whole top of the Miata soft top would separate itself, and I would have to be ready to react. Did not, and made it. And then before heading back, my father gifted me some just ready for you guys flex tape. Some clear flex tape that I was able to slap right over that. Like, might have to buy me a roll of that. Make my whole top out of it until I decide to buy $500 new one.
Fantastic.
But drove back home here and found out that also being that old, in heavy downpours of rain at highway speeds, it slowly starts to find its way through the crevices and weather sealing between the top and the top of the window. And so I had to adjust my raincoat over my passenger seat and things in it so that it could catch all the splashes. And towards the end in Colorado, I hydroplaned a little bit here and there, had to slow down, but I made it safe. And I'm ready to talk about Marvel's Phase 3. Are we at now?
We are in phase 3, yes. Yes, we are.
All right. Then I will sit down, be quiet, and let Todd continue to discuss it and get us going. And then I will share my opinions as we go forward.
Please.
Using it as some superhero after Avengers Age of Ultron, and introducing us stopping Infinity War and Endgame. This is the culmination of the storytelling of the first 3 phases. It includes the film, Captain America: Civil War, Strange Volume 2, Spider-Man: Homecoming, Thor: Ragnarok, Black Panther, The Empire Strikes Back, Ant-Man and the Wasp, Avengers Endgame, God, still more, Spider-Man: Far From Home, and that's it.
So I would say this is a great suite of films, generally speaking. There were so many good ones here that I know I was super excited to see in the cinema. When I left, I was like, I could go watch that again right now and still enjoy it.
100%, I agree. As I've said before, Infinity War, this generation's Empire Strikes Back. It is as good as storytelling and filmmaking. And Infinity War, of course, sees the just important bit.
Sounds like they're having robots, and so
I don't hear anything,
us-
sir.
well, not from us. I just listened to the stream because Hando said so. And
Oh,
so if we could maybe hit the restart audio engine on voice meter, if you're using that, and see if that
And the button has been clicked. I was also changing so that it's up to 483. And with the computer, the like mine that is barely
Yes.
going on. It
Streaming
might
anything
be,
you do.
Yeah. It may have gagged and wheezed a bit at
Okay.
the changing of the graphic, but I think
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah, looks good.
Well done.
It was really quite hypnotic. Anyway. There's not a bad film in this spot. I'm waiting to watch Lord Doctor Strange.
Yep.
Infinity War and Endgame.
Yep, all great films. Especially, I really well, Endgame like is exceptional. I would say, and I think we should. I'd like to leave discussion to that at the very end because it's a very novel, and I think the first film of its ilk, and so I'd like to leave that to later.
Ooh.
But Doctor Strange, I thoroughly enjoyed. I thought it was because it's exactly he represented me in the Marvel universe. If I was somehow confronted with magic powers, I'm like, nah, that's BS. He just channeled my inner skepticism, and I loved it until I eventually saw it. Like it was not until it was in front of him, then he was like, fine, it's real. You know.
No, it's yeah, I loved every that. I love the spirituality. I love Tilda Swinton as the keeper or the immortal or the guardian, how her title was, and the fact that she in fact used forbidden magic to prolong her
That was
life.
good.
Yeah, it's all good. It also had what I think is the most novel defeat of a big bad and use of time travel. Right? It's
Yeah.
simultaneously like it's a fantastic bit of storytelling.
It really is. You're absolutely correct.
So-
And I actually forgot to. Well, I forgot about the Dormammu, whatever his name is, Dormammu part because that was excellent. I mean, a truly like extra universe being that is outside our reality that wants to consume our world. What a fascinating concept! And
Yep.
then we stop him with a time trick. Ah,
Yes.
so good.
Well, and
So
that's
good.
just it, right? The extra dimensional being has no concept of time. So if you had no concept of time and then were suddenly subjected to it repeating over and over and over and over again, yeah, I'd be freaked the F out too.
Plus, it was
with No Way Out.
Yes.
yeah.
It couldn't conceptualize or you come up with any way out of what he was stuck in once he realized he was stuck.
Plus, it gave a little bit of foreshadowing for how later problems in the series, spoiler alert,
Yes.
are solved.
Yes. Not the biggest bad in this universe, but certainly a big and powerful one that was defeated with a clever title trick.
Mhm.
We should talk about Civil War
Yeah,
more. I like the concept of Civil War. I am a little disappointed in the way that the MCU tells Civil War, but I'm also going to tie it in with Thor Ragnarok because it's the superhero Civil War that ultimately ends up with Doctor Strange, Iron Man, Mr. Fantastic, and Professor X putting Bruce Banner on a spaceship and sending him off planet to a place that doesn't have any other human life on it, that just has animal life. They found a place where he could be and be as angry as he wants to be, and it doesn't matter. And something goes wrong, and Bruce Banner ends up on a planet called Sakaar.
is that what eventually becomes Planet Hulk?
Yes.
Okay.
And then he becomes king of that planet and decides to go home. And that, my friends, would have been a license to print money for the end of time. Until the end of time. Because it's
People love
Hulk
Planet
beating
Hulk,
the
man.
hell out of people.
And people,
Well-
I think they were so bitten after the first film with Hulk that they were afraid to do anything like that, though.
So the challenge I have is that you don't get the true comic book version of any of these things they're touching upon, or any of the storylines that we see throughout any of the MCU, right?
Sure.
We don't get the real story of the Infinity Gauntlet and the Infinity Gems. We get a
No.
version made for the movies.
Mhm.
We don't get the true story of Civil War, where you literally have the majority of the Marvel universe fighting against each other and people dying constantly through it. Instead, you get this very reduced piece of it where you do get the conflict, but it's like the old comparison of the actual movie graphic of everyone like fighting up versus the comic book cover that showed, times more characters involved in that fight.
Mhm.
We never get the true full depth of what the comics provided because nobody had truly committed to let's just remake those full comic storylines and arcs into multiple movies.
Sure.
And so they're picking pieces of what people like from them and the ideas of and throwing them together. And arguably done way better this time than they did with like the X-Men movies that Fox or Sony or whoever was in charge of, where they destroyed like the whole Dark Phoenix saga. And
I was
Phoenix
going to
story.
say, you're talking about the old Famke Janssen, the old ones. Yeah.
Yeah. And,
Yep.
And so in a way, I understand what you're saying, Todd, that yes, they could have just kept going, but I don't feel like they've yet, even to today, really accepted that they probably could do way closer to the original comic book story arcs,
Mhm.
and people would love it.
Sure.
They're still in this hesitant phase of like, but we're going to reference the stuff that the nerds will like, but we're going to really focus on something we can make for the mass market.
Uh-huh.
Without understanding that, like I believe, most of the mass market would probably appreciate the same thing that the nerds would. They just never had been introduced
Right.
to it.
Right.
We're seeing that
And so-
over the decades, aren't we? I mean, like originally, decades and decades ago, we couldn't imagine. Let me give you a little real world anecdotal experience of this, of the real world coming to terms with geekdom more and more. Last night, Kitten and I played Pathfinder for the first time. And she was so completely scared of the idea because she kept hearing about what we called Math Finder and thought it was just going to be all rules and boring and like, why do people enjoy this? And she came out of it saying that was the most fun I've had in months. That was insanely cool. And which is it's basically Dungeons and Dragons for anybody who doesn't know what Pathfinder is. And it's something that's completely outside of her comfort zone, something that she's never really done before. And and that's something that I think in the 80s, if somebody said, "Hey, do you want to play D&D?" you'd have been like condoned as a nerd who lives in their basement and not being seen as the part of the mainstream culture. But now I think, as we've seen with things like Big Bang Theory and other shows like that, geekdom and nerddom has become much more mainstream these days. And I think that, so I agree. I think that bringing comic book storylines into movies is much more palatable to the average person nowadays than it used to be.
But by the way, Ken, you've touched on a massive side conversation because I was fine. I have always been fine being a social pariah. And I don't think all of this stuff going mainstream is good for much of it. For some of it, certainly. But I just don't think I don't think Critical Role being as popular as it is particularly good for D&D. Because I honestly I don't know that I'll
there's
ever
a-
play another D&D campaign again.
Why?
I know where you're going with all this, Todd, and I think this is a big topic that we should get into a show with.
Because the
definitely
role
is.
play, quite frankly, is boring.
But-
The role play aspects of D&D are boring.
I disagrey.
Like
So
being,
here's the key: pin in it, because this is a whole show. And
that's
so
fair.
let's finish
That's fair.
MCU, because I agree. There's actually a lot to talk about that subject,
Yes.
so we do need to come back to it and talk to it.
Let's
But
talk about how
going
awesome these films are.
Well, because there's some in this one I want to get to, and I'm not even letting myself get back to some of the stuff I heard you guys talk about in the first two phases that I wanted to rail against. But we continue on because we now talked about Doctor Strange to a bit, and thank you for MCU bringing magic into the universe, because this is also
Yep.
the thing I said about Galaxies, Guardians of the Galaxies, bringing the external elements of the MCU into the movies beyond what Thor did with Asgardians. It actually brought in more of the Eternals, all the space elements and stuff, because the MCU is so much bigger than Earth. And so those movies, I think, were integrally important for introducing concepts into the MCU that they can now revisit.
Yep.
Well, I remember in the early days of the Avengers, all magic was deemed to be technology, and even with Thor, it was said, "Oh, it's just advanced technology." So you're absolutely right that they did start to bring in magic, and I think Scarlet Witch was really the first real magic we saw.
Well, they
think-
still had her as doing. They weren't really calling her witch yet, and her magic, her hexes and stuff, weren't really described as hexes. And we didn't really get that acceptance or talk about her ability until WandaVision. That WandaVision actually gave us like, yep, it's magic. It is this thing. They were still skirting the line. It's just like how they don't, because of rights, right? Don't talk about mutants. Just like we talked, you guys mentioned earlier, because Disney Marvel didn't own the right to mutants, and so they always skirted the line to the fact that Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch are actually mutants because they were the children of Magneto.
Yeah.
And so there's stuff they've had to do in the MCU because of rights. So I'm very thankful for the movies that started to bring it back, so that we can now have more of the actual Marvel IP all brought together.
Sure.
It is shocking with the amount of money that they haven't purchased the rights to the mutants yet.
Well, look at Spider-Man. And that's one of the big things actually about the whole thing with Civil War. One of the things I loved about it was it actually brought Spider-Man into the MCU.
Yeah.
Fully. Like, and we got to accept, and they started doing their deal. And for me, it was actually one of the best representations of Spider-Man in Marvel movies, because he
Agree
was
completely.
snarky. They showed his abilities. They showed how agile he was, his youth. All of that got showcased
I loved
in
it.
comparison to all the other ones.
Yep.
And to me, that was like the moments of that fight in Civil War with Spider-Man blew me away.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yep,
Anyhow.
I agree completely.
100%.
That was one of the best additions of a new hero that I've seen yet.
Yeah, he's fine. I don't get OEI'd about Spider-Man the way a lot of people do. He's a fine hero. But yeah, his introduction is perfectly adequate, perfectly acceptable. I don't know if I would say the best necessarily, but certainly more than comfortable with the way they did it. It's not like I would riot or
Well,
anything.
let me
or
ask you
anything
this:
like that.
did you thoroughly enjoy the old Spider-Man films back in the day?
What the
the
Tobey Maguire?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're fine. I watched them.
They were fine. I see. I think that might be the cause here, because for me that was like formative.
Well,
for my
but here's the
Oh,
key, right?
no,
One of
no.
the beautiful things about all superhero movies, right? Not everybody jives with every superhero.
Yeah.
Everybody has their favorites, and there's ones that like people just do not care about. And that's one of the beautiful things about comic stories and heroes, is that there's such a variety and many out there
Sure.
that it's okay for someone to love this one and not that one.
Mhm.
Because there's a lot of very famous characters people love that I'm like, oh, I don't give two, cares about. I don't,
Right.
because I resonated with this character. So
Yeah,
I
like Captain
respect and
Propaganda.
understand that across the board, which is we won't get into now because I was going to yell and scream at that one.
I know you were.
Well, it's because I feel like your wokeness is making you hate a character besides what the character actually is. That you're actually coloring it because of what you see a symbol as versus the actual character of what they're doing in the world and how they're performing.
I thought
That
you
Captain
weren't gonna go
America
into it,
doesn't
Wade.
ever follow the actual rote thing that the government tells him to. He does what he believes is the idealism of how people should behave versus doing this is what a good soldier should do, and that's what makes him interesting.
Well, but we, we actually can't talk about that because the first movie of Phase 3 is Civil War, like where the big
And it's the culmination of
conflict between Steve Rogers and Tony Stark comes to its head, right? So,
Yep.
right, this is where two people that are trying to do what they perceive to be best have come into direct conflict with each other, and what happens in that case, and as it turns out, lots of property destruction and delayed flights and whatnot. So that's what ends up happening as it turns out. No, it's one of those things where having a particular love of not just a character, but a character's very specific and limited storyline was like, oh, imagine what they could do. And does Bruce Banner even show up in this? He's just gone, right?
Yeah, because this is the point where he is still out.
Right.
He is not
That's right.
because it would have because the whole this is why he was
Yeah.
out on the external planet, because if he was there for Civil War, whichever side had him would have won.
Yeah,
Correct. There's no
he
question.
he can beat
It's
the
the
rest
same
of them
reason-
single-handedly.
It's the same reason essentially because Thor wasn't there either, right?
Right.
Well, Scarlet
so they-
Witch was there.
They do the balance aspect of it, and that's the key, because they put it's the discussion I had earlier about how whether or why it matters that you have Romanoff in it versus other ones, where it's the power scale and when do their powers matter.
Sure.
And I'm a big appreciative. I really appreciate where not every character has to be a god character, because I feel like that's what makes the DCU so boring. That DC's comics are just all their characters are basically the pantheon of gods, and so who cares, because they're all gods. Where with Marvel, you get the scale, and so you get to see how those things match up at each level. And so that's the challenge, and I think why they purposefully chose to not have Hulk or Thor there, because you would have had to put them against each other, and the destruction would have been even greater, and you wouldn't have really had the back and forth in Civil War that you got.
Yeah.
You would have needed more heroes.
Yeah, a lot more.
Which is the whole point of what we're saying is the one thing that's really upsetting about these films is they didn't have more heroes from like they do in the comics.
It's the challenge is we would have never got to it
Well,
otherwise.
And you would have never. You can't give that many people screen time, right? I mean, if you think about one of the things that's sort of permeated all of these movies, especially the Avengers films, because they're ensemble movies, is the way that they like cast lots to figure out which people are going to be shown together in action sequence together. Okay, it's Thor and Iron Man. Now it's Captain America and Thor. Now it's the Hulk and Black Widow. Now it's Hawkeye and Iron Man. Now it's all the girls. Now it's and so if you added even more heroes, like that final action sequence at the end of Endgame, where everybody's
where you finally get it.
Yeah. Right, where you get the biggest one of them all, like instead of being half hour, that would have had to have been like an hour and a half. Like that would have had to have been Endgame Part 2, where we just pick names out of a hat at random and they do awesome stuff.
Which, by the way, I don't. So, speaking of comics that we've read, and I know this is DC, not Marvel, but the one of the only comic series that I ever read was The Darkest Night or The Blackest Night. I can't remember what it's called. But it's the Green Lantern series, graphic novel kind of comic collection, and I picked this up as like my first introduction to comics. So like, oh, they look kind of interesting, and it's it's kind of like a tome rather than a single comic. So I can it's got a good 120 pages or something like that. So this will keep me going for a little while. And I picked it up, and oh my god, it had like 150 different named characters, of whom I only knew about 8%.
Yep.
And the ones that were there apparently weren't all the real versions of themselves. Some of them were like alternate versions from alternate realities. And I was like, man, I have no idea. It was cool and I enjoyed reading it, but I don't know what happened. I have no understanding of what really happened. And I can only imagine what that would be like with Marvel as well, if it had the same kind of, here's all the heroes from 300 different films we produced in the past 20 years.
Yep.
It would have been really, really difficult.
Yeah.
All right,
I think
so
the scale
because
looking for
there's
the
multiple
comics
movies in Phase 3. We're not even going to get to probably talking Phase 4 at all in this, but I want to at least, real quickly talk. For me, Guardians 2 was fun, continued, not much really in the sense of like tying into the main thing. It was the one movie I felt stepped away.
Star
from the
Trek
rest of what's going on.
5, not sucky edition.
Yeah, so it was okay, but it didn't progress the universe. So from the overall Phase 3 thing, I'm kind of like, I set that aside a little bit. Like, great, that was fun. Continue. Like Black Panther, I thought was wonderful. Loved Black Panther. it can have its own full discussion there, because the way they presented the characters, Wakanda, all that stuff was really nicely put together.
Uh-huh.
It's again, it sets the stage for some of what they're going to do with the rest of the phase, because it sets up what's happened to Bucky, after it's to a little bit, right? It's touched on, he's there, it's end credit scene, right? I think that we get that. And it kind of sets the stage for what they're going to do later with it, but otherwise itself is almost self-contained. We get a little bit from a setup that we don't know is a setup from Ant-Man and the Wasp. And that's another end credit one, because that one's mostly standalone, but it does still, as they do, talk about more the science of the universe kind of thing. And what they'll
did you guys care about that Ant-Man at all, by the way? Did you find that
I love
enjoyable?
Ant-Man, and I can't stand that you guys didn't talk about it more, because the original Ant-Man was phenomenal, funny, and one of the most underrated movies in the MCU.
Sure, it was funny. It was funny.
It was funny.
Well, and so the problem is, like, is there no value in funny and just entertaining movies? Does everything have to be a hardcore, in-depth, like, character piece, or can't you just have some fun here and there?
Guardians is funnier. Like, we had the did we really need human comic relief? Right?
I'm fine with human comic relief.
On top of the Guardians? Like, it's fine. I'm not saying don't include him. Like, I like Ant-Man fine. Am I gonna go out of... Would I stop what I'm doing to watch Ant-Man? No.
Yeah, I agree with that. It was okay. But compared to the other films I watched, it was just kind of disappointing.
So good. So good.
Yeah, it's. I mean, there's not a bad... let's be real. There's not a bad film in the bunch.
No.
Right? Like, Iron Man 2 sort of meh. Like, Ant-Man
I don't know. Iron Man 3 I thought was mostly hot garbage.
I mean, again, we have to get into... What's Iron Man 3 is the start of... No. Phase 2, right?
It goes towards the end of phase 2. It's somewhere in there.
It's important that we know that Tony Stark is dealing with PTSD and not well.
Which is fine, but a whole movie where you basically create throwaway suits and you create...
I loved it. I thought it was so much fun.
So weak. The best part of it was how they treated the villain in it that pissed so many people off. That was like the best part of that.
Yeah. Oh, the what the heck was his name? The Manchurian?
I believe something like that. Not that exact.
Which is just Ben Kingsley as an actor.
Yes, I loved how they played it, because if they had actually had the true villain in it, they hadn't really opened the universe to that yet, and it would have been kind of awkward or hard to pull that off.
Right.
So the way they did do it, I was like, I actually appreciated it as much as many people hated it.
Ben Kingsley, by the way, goes on that list with Jeremy Irons and Alan Rickman and others. With
good.
Yeah.
So because I don't think we do have time. Well, we do have time to continue on and do Phase 4, I think. However, I don't think we would have enough content for another show entirely. So I do think we should just hasten on and move on to the next step. Is there anything else major you want to say about this phase?
I mean,
Thor Ragnarok's hilarious and one of the best, like, timing and overall, like, just the pacing of a movie I've seen. I enjoyed it from front to back.
Yeah,
Captain Marvel was shoehorned in a way that hurts me still.
Yeah,
I enjoyed Captain Marvel. It was a bit strangely set up, I felt, but I did enjoy it.
Brie Larson Brie Larson has done some unfortunate twittery. So, in the same way with your feelings about Gwyneth Paltrow, I sort of had the same thing about Brie Larson. So it was just kind of like, well, I don't need to see Ms. Captain Marvel. I felt. We do have to talk about Infinity War and Endgame, because and I've said this 2 or 3 times in this show. I'm going to say it again. This is Empire Strikes Back of my unborn daughter's generation. Right?
I agree.
It just is. It's if not for the Empire Strikes Back, and given that Disney's sort of tainted the legacy of those films a little bit, maybe the best film ever made.
I agree. I think that it is a culmination of. I've never seen such a culmination of so many storylines come together into one epic film that had clearly so much skill, expertise from actors, producers, digital artists, musicians, costume designers, piece designers, all coming together and making such an excellent,
And
polished to
Ken,
infinity film.
you've touched on it, but I wanna develop that point a little bit more. Think
Please.
about how much lack of patience everybody has. Like everybody wants the payoff for everything right away. And
Yeah.
nobody's got the patience or the long-sightedness, right, to sit back and go, okay, there's the potential that this stuff is going to be awesome, and we just have to wait for it, right?
Mhm.
And this is the culmination of over a decade's worth of storytelling,
Wow, I never thought of it that way. You're
right?
right.
'Cause
It is
the
a decade.
original Iron Man is 2008,
Oh my God.
right?
That's crazy.
And so you think script development predates 2008 by some amount of time. That means that Infinity War and Endgame are the culmination of a decade's worth of storytelling.
That's
It is
insane.
the opposite of what everybody is conditioned for. That you tell the story and you deliver, right? It used to be this way in pro wrestling. If you want to know why Hulk Hogan and Andre the Giant is such an important moment, it's not the actual body slam itself. It's the year of storytelling that led up to that point,
Mm-hmm.
right? Part of the reason why the Ricky Steamboat Macho Man Savage match at WrestleMania 3 is one of the 3 best wrestling matches of all time. Part of it is the match itself and the quality of the people in the ring, yes, but without 8 months worth of compelling storyline to get us to this match, to make you feel like there's something real on the line that's happening in this match where we know the outcomes are determined. So it's not a real athletic contest, but there's a story being told. And that's what Infinity War and Endgame are to me.
I
10
agree.
years of waiting for a payoff, and we got it, and they didn't blow it. Ryan Johnson, take notes.
Wayne, do you agree?
I do actually. No, I do agree because the thing about, and it wasn't so much, I would say, I think it culminates with Endgame. I think Infinity War is the whole tee up to that production and the payoff that we get.
agree
That
with that.
because of the way they balance it out and they tee it up with this whole and here's the state of the universe, that we're so peaked and ready for when Endgame hits that it's just like, holy cow, and you get all of these peaks of that moment coming together, all ending up with one of the more epic battles you could ever hope to have. And in a state where they do the great thing of they really peak that battle with, nope, y'all done lost, basically. And then several moments of but maybe, and then holy cow, yes. And then once it hits that, it's just like boom, 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 right? And
Yeah.
so,
For the follow, Chris.
Hey, thank you.
but yeah, it is. So it's nice that I believe they did execute it quite well. And it did bring back a bunch. And to the point that when I went back and I watched some specific YouTube videos showcasing, especially Endgame, all of the callbacks they did in that movie purposefully to all of those years of MCU movies leading up to it. To music choice, to specific one-liners
Yep.
they did, to things in the background
It's
of
a
scenes.
masterpiece of consideration. You're
They
absolutely
really
right.
took their time with it. And that, to me, actually made me appreciate it even further. Like I saw it
That's a
the
good
first time,
point.
I was like, this is a heck of a good time. I had the moments in the, watching it in the theater where, the classic thing, right? When you get the hammer thrown, right?
Oh.
And you see it come back and you're like, or you
so
come
good.
back, right? And you're just like, yes, right? It just hits you, right? And the whole theater I was in was just like, you felt the energy and that bit of a cheer that came out. And I think some people verbalized it. And that
Yeah.
told you the level of this is what we wanted and this is right.
Yeah.
And I agree with Todd. It was handled masterfully.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
almost as perfect. almost as perfect as could be done, given
Yeah, I would agree with
Hollywood structure and all the other stuff, right? So, I guess we really don't need to say anything more about that. I could gush about those two films forever, but really calling them Empire Strikes Back of this generation
very
is
high
really
praise.
where it's
I
where it's
better
at.
appreciate what you mean by that. I do. I better appreciate your, labeling it as such.
Yeah. So, okay, let's talk about Phase 4. This is 2021 through 2023, and I'm just going to rip the names of these things off real quick, and then we can talk about anything that we want to. So, WandaVision series on Disney Plus, Falcon and Winter Soldier again series on Disney Plus. Loki gets his own film, Black Widow gets her own film, Shang-Chi, Legend of the Ten Rings. What If is an animated series that's going to be on Disney Plus. Apparently, Eternals, Ms. Marvel, Hawkeye gets a biographic. Another Spider-Man movie just in time for Christmas. Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. Thor, Love and Thunder, probably a rock opera. Black Panther, Wakanda Forever, The Marvels, plural. Ant-Man and Wasp, Quantumania, brother, is gonna run wild on you! Moon Knight, She-Hulk, Guardians Volume 3, May 2023, we think. And then finally closing out Phase 4, I guess, at the end of 2023, a remake of Blade, I guess.
That's crazy, man.
Well, and there's additional thoughts. There's like other little mini series and stuff that are maybe happening within. Because like I Am Groot's getting a mini series or something, a little thing. Apparently, and this is the one I'm actually going to be most curious to see how bad or good it may be. Is that
a cash grab,
supposedly
man.
we're getting Guardians of the Galaxy's holiday special the end of next year.
Oh my god.
There's rumors or something about a Fantastic Four film being made,
Okay.
and Guardians
Okay.
3 is
And what?
Guardians 3.
Yeah, I mentioned that. May 5.
Oh, did you mention-
May
okay,
2023.
which
Yeah,
one that-
Guardians 3.
And the Loki one's going to be a series, not a movie.
Oh, it's going to be a series.
Yeah, it's a series.
Yeah.
So just off the top, what do you guys think of the fact that we're getting this now blending of series and movies from Disney Marvel? Because arguably back they tried it earlier when it wasn't all under Disney, because I know we didn't talk about at the beginning the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. But for me, that was like it started and then just for me fell off hard. And I no longer cared once they tried to go with the Immortals.
I never started watching it.
We're MCU. We're all the named guys over there.
Oh, Agent. That's all we got. Agent Smith or whatever.
Yeah,
Or-
it's Agent, exactly. Give me Hugo Weaving as Agent Smith, as an agent of S.H.I.E.L.D., and I'm totally there. I'm
There you
totally
go, there
there
you
for that show. Totally there
I
for
forget
that
his
show.
name. Oh well. But like I said,
I just didn't
that
care.
was-
I didn't even try watching it. It never appealed to me.
So I was kept hoping for it to be what I feel like we're getting now, which is I believe they're doing a great job because with WandaVision I quite enjoyed, and I liked having the ability to see a long format story where they didn't have to do everything in a single shot, that they were able to let it build up and give you a payoff in a short series.
Mhm.
And even and same thing with Falcon and Winter Soldier. I got the same feel from it, where it's like you built up, you told a story, you finish it, and each of them left me with and now I see where this could fit into the movie when it happens next. Whenever these characters show up again. And I'm ready for it.
I mean, yeah, I'm fine with the series. Like I mentioned to Ken, WandaVision was fine. I haven't finished it yet. I'm sure there's things that happen that I need to see. Like I'm sure
It
that there's that
definitely
Luke
builds at the
Skywalker
end.
moment at the end of season 2 of Mandalorian, right? The equivalent of that, or something like that. So
But yeah.
I need to just find my fangs and finish it. I am utterly uninterested in Falcon and Winter Soldier. I could care less about either one of those two people. So putting them together in a
same.
combo deal is just kind of like whatever. Black Widow's getting her movie 10 years too late. Like 2011 was the time to do the Black Widow
Flashback to,
biographic.
wait.
And we
Oh,
know
wait, I
what
forgot you're dead.
and we know what that looks like, right? It's basically Red Sparrow, but marvelly and awesome. And with
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be a fun ride that doesn't lead to anything,
yeah.
right? Unless they somehow introduce a character that we're going to get revisioned on that's going to show up elsewhere. I don't. Yeah, that I don't see where that goes.
It's MCU
But I'm gonna
Rogue
watch
One.
Hey, I love me some ScarJo, and so I will watch the heck out of that.
Here.
Right. So,
Yep.
you know,
I think What If's got a lot of potential, just based
So
on.
tell,
mean,
us,
for
tell
me,
us a little bit
that's-
about that. What do you guys know about
What Ifs is going to be. Oh, dude, I love What Ifs. If you've never read a What If comic book, you're doing yourself a disservice.
No, I understand the general theory, but is there information about what this one is going to be about?
So all I know is it's going to be animated. It's going to be on Disney Plus, and it's going to be alternate tellings of MCU events.
Yep. The one that we know off the top is that here you go, Ken, is that we're not going to get Captain America. Instead, we get Captain Carter. We
Okay,
get
I'm into it.
UK's Captain Carter, because
That's
instead of Steve Rogers getting the serum, Agent Carter gets it, and she
Okay,
picks up
that's
the
easy.
shield, and it's a Union Jack or whatever it is,
Oh,
or
God.
British flag,
That's
British flag,
cringe.
and boom.
That's
But
gonna
that's
be,
the whole
it's
thing.
going to be great.
The What If series is all at a pivotal moment within the Marvel universe where either a character was created or somebody died or something like that happened. You know, the Watcher comes and says basically, but what if that didn't happen? What if this happened instead? And you usually get a one-shot comic or two that says, here's an idea of where that story could have gone.
Yep.
And that's all it is. And it's kind of the idea of, it brings in that multiverse concept that
Sure.
in a different shard of the universe that happened. And we're just gazing into it from ours.
It's crazy they're actually going to pull this off. Like, you think that can you imagine 20 years ago learning that a film's coming out that's going to be covering the multiverse aspects of the Marvel comics? You'd be like, what? How?
Yeah,
That's
right,
impossible.
right.
Nobody's going to care about that.
I love this.
All
This is Animatrix, and I'm so
Yeah,
on
it
board.
is.
I am so on
Oh.
board.
I can't wait. It's a series. They're going to be able to do whatever they want with it. That's one of the joys of what If has always been, is they can really explore, just like have fun with it. Do that silly thing. It's because there's no consequence to it afterwards. They get to really go forward. And if they want, they can kill a whole bunch of characters. If they want, they can do other things with ones. They can make relationships that didn't mean to happen. They can make fights that were never going to happen. It's some of the best stuff. It's to me the same level as the crossover movies or comics between DC and Marvel, right? When you finally got the fight between Superman and Hulk, when you finally got, those kind of things, it's the same level of like, oh, this is just fun. And so I'm looking forward to that.
Here's the Doctor Strange blurb. This is from the Daily Dot, by the way. Cumberbatch will return to portray Doctor Strange, while Olsen's Scarlet Witch will make an appearance. It will also be the first film that we know of that will loop into what happens in a Disney Plus show into the MCU. It will be Marvel's first theatrical release of 2022. So
Okay.
Yeah.
I hear, or it feels like they're going to be doing some more setting the groundwork for how the universe works in that one. So I'll be curious. Be curious to see what it adds. Yeah, there's a few of them coming that I'm really looking forward to. Like, I'm really looking forward to the series for Moon Knight, because if they do that character justice, it's going to be one of the more brutal Marvel IPs that we see,
okay.
which I hope they do. I hope he's violent. He's basically clinically insane. And so I look forward to see how hopefully they don't shy away from it. I'll be curious to see what they do with the She-Hulk movie, series that they're doing, the She-Hulk series, just to see, do they make her something that's going to transition into the universe? Because my big hope is they're introducing all these new characters in Phase 4.
Mm-hmm.
So what's going to be the big culmination of it all?
Who's the big bad?
Story arc? What
Yeah.
story arc are they going to start, right?
Yeah.
Are they going to go back to like the Beyonder? Or are they going to do something like Secret Wars? Are they going to do like all these other things? Or are they going to do something new?
Well,
Right. Oh,
so isn't
I
it?
would love if
isn't
they
it?
did a proper Galactus.
Sure,
funny.
but isn't it? Didn't they do Scar or the Shapeshifter guys? Am I thinking the wrong? Am I thinking X-Men? Might be X-Men.
Oh no! Well, no, you did, because at the end where the whole snap, right? And when he came back, and you're like, wait, why do we have Samuel Jackson. Why do we have his character here when he's not supposed to be around? And it turns out it's one of the, not the Kree, but the other ones, right?
Yeah.
That were impersonating him, the
Yes.
shapeshifters. Yeah, that was
Yeah.
that, and they had it in Captain Marvel. They were all in those.
Okay.
Uh,
Okay, so it could be them or the forces behind them as the big bad for.
well, because one of the things we haven't seen yet is still the group that is tied into um, Captain Marvel right now, which is the is that the
what she said she's off fighting and why she's not been around and such.
well, they have the ones that were working on Adam Warlock, right? We've still yet to see Adam Warlock come out of the Golden Cocoon, and his whole purpose is to go after Captain Marvel and the Guardians because they pissed off that whole race.
Oh.
And so we still haven't seen that, and he's supposed to be super powerful. So I'm hoping to see that in some form because he's still up in the air.
Mm.
Cool. All right. Well, with that, I think we've had quite an interesting breadth of conversations over the span of the phases of the Marvel universe and where it's going. I'm glad it's not over. I'm glad it's still going because I've been so thoroughly enjoying this series of films.
Well, that was going to be the last ask I had of each of you was, are you happy or down with what you've been seeing, with what Disney and Marvel are doing? If not everything's been a perfect movie or a perfect showing, are you at least in generally happy with what they're doing and being entertained and looking forward to more coming out?
So this is gonna be sacrilege when I say it. I would have liked all Marvel content to have stopped after Endgame finished. Like we gave you the big payoff. Either if I don't remember what came next. After
We got Homecoming.
after Endgame. Oh, Homecoming?
Spider-Man
Yeah.
Homecoming.
So you could do Spider-Man Homecoming, but after that, like for the MCU to essentially pause for by the Lions.
Hey, congratulations,
Thank you
Hando.
thank you. Welcome to Hando. I think Hando Wag. And by the way, I am no longer freaked out at the alert. It only took like 3
When it
times.
pops.
Jerks. Anyway,
It does
yeah,
make-
no, we got the payoff, and now we don't have to see it for a while, right? And
Gotcha.
I think that would have been okay. I wouldn't call what's going on brand fatigue per se, but like after you deliver a payoff as big and as meaningful as Endgame, like it kind of needs to pause. Like again, to tie it back to professional wrestling, we didn't see Hulk Hogan and Andre the Giant in a ring again after WrestleMania 3 until the following in the lead of WrestleMania 4, right? They just didn't come near each other. And yeah, I would have liked, I guess I would have liked a little bit of a pause so that we could all breathe and take stock and revel and show sort of deference to what just was.
Ken, how about yourself?
What was the original question again?
Are you down with what you've been seeing, and are you
Ah,
excited
yes.
for what's going forward within how it's continuing?
I don't know. Yeah, I think I agree. It would have been a good stopping point. End game, after all. at the same time, I selfishly want more. I don't feel like it's done. I feel like it could be, but I feel like I don't know. From a selfish standpoint, I'm enjoying the films and I'd like to see more because you know what? Of all the films in the past 5 years that have been coming out of cinema, I've not particularly cared about anything other than this. So I don't really want it to end just because I really enjoy going to the cinema and watching a good film.
No,
And if they can find a way of continuing the storyline that's still being worthwhile, great. If they can't, then I can only say in retrospect that it wasn't worth it later on.
nobody's ever really gone, Ken.
Oh wait,
all
that's the wrong universe. Sorry.
So my take on it is that, and generally, I've been enjoying the ride pretty much all the way through. I'm looking forward to the new IP coming out, and to kind of add to what Todd said or give my own take on that idea. Part of me is almost in the mindset of like, I kind of enjoy the fact that they are continuing, because for those who got what they needed with Endgame, they can take a rest if they choose.
Yeah.
And for people who are still enjoying it, they can keep going. But it allows Marvel to hopefully keep introducing more characters, such that in future big movies, and with this hybrid system of series and movies, we're going to get even a bigger culmination of heroes in the future. And hopefully they will have the wherewithal to let them all come together on screen at some point for something epic. And that way you can keep doing little tidbits out there. And if later one of these characters that have introduced through the series and other stuff that maybe someone didn't watch or didn't care to check out, they see in action later and think, actually, that seems pretty cool, they could always come back and enjoy the content that brought them in later. And so there's this whole just continuing arc that is, for me, the first time I've ever seen the breadth of what comics really have always been for us, existing in the same way. Because I did that with comic books, where you'd read and see a character in a comic book like, who's that? And of course, comic books are always great about saying, if you'd like to know the full story, check out this issue of this comic, and you can follow up there, because they were so good at cross-promoting their own IP.
100%. 100%.
They had to.
I'm down for something like that to happen, knowing that I may not resonate with every character. And that, again, is okay for me. So I'm down. I'm excited. I like that we're getting more geekdom, and I'm okay with it not being as pure as the childhood comic book nerd I would have hoped, because I'm still having a good time.
Yeah, that's fair.
That's fair enough.
Okay, y'all. You have been watching, listening, and enjoying Show X here on twitch.tv/VTW Show X. Thank you so much for tuning in and joining us today. We really appreciate it. You can support us by going to linktr.ee/Show X. If you go there, you can find links to our everything, our Facebook, our Instagram, our Reddit, our Twitter, our everything. Everything's in there. Go check it out and support us by subscribing and liking all those different forums. And then you can see when we're going live, what our topics will be. And then you can email in early to vtwshowx@gmail.com with what your thoughts are when you see our advertisements. So thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you guys for a fascinating show. And thanks for rushing home to join us, Wayne. Really appreciate that.
Yep, for sure. For sure. So ordinarily it's a tradition that we have the outro about zombies and whatnot, right? But I have to do it a cappella, and I decided this time that I would do an old school traditional outro. So, and I have props to make it a visual gimmick. So here we go. Post-game shows brought to you by Christ, I can't find it. The hell with it.